seems to be more of a thing in 3.9 than it was in 3.8. Now, you may notice that I just took some injury there. And now the little, I guess, blood icon, you can't really tell. It looks like water because it's blue instead of red in the lower left-hand side of the screen. You're going to notice that that is now going down. So I'm guessing what is happening is I'm bleeding my own.
Oh my god, it's water, you idiot.
Well, we know that now. But in the beginning, it really wasn't all that clear. And now I kind of want to, explain how I got there. This is the original footage from yesterday's episode. This is the raw, unedited footage. It's playing currently at 10,000 times speed. This is the maximum speed my editing software will allow me to kind of time compress things to. Now, if you pay attention to the lower left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see all kinds of status effects come up. Temperature, O2. These things are coming up. These things are popping up while I'm doing things. BP monitor pops up a few times when I'm running. But apart from that, nothing else shows up. And so this is kind of how I got there. I mean, think about it. By the time this symbol appeared and I went back and I rewatched the raw footage, it didn't appear until I had almost finished with this panel right here. It was, I think, in total, there it goes. It was an hour and 18 minutes into the footage before that symbol appeared. And as you can kind of see, I'm a little bit distracted at the time, so I probably didn't even really pay attention to it. And I only really kind of saw it, I guess, when I had after I had injured myself and the blood had flashed up on the screen. So I guess that's kind of how I got there. Now, some of it, of course, is totally on me. One, I don't like to read patch notes. People know that about me. I don't really get in on that stuff because it's the same reason why I tend to avoid playing the early access of like WoW expansions. I'll test a few things out to see if there's any big changes that I need to compensate for in my class, but apart from that, I really don't play it through because I like to, I know the big events that are coming and stuff like that, but I'd like to just kind of play through the stories generically. And so I've kind of gotten to a point where I don't really like to go through the minutia of patch notes, and even here, I'm not really a big fan. I like to kind of discover things. But I guess like what I'm trying to say is that, right next to it, you have an oxygen bottle. How do you know it's oxygen? Because it says O2 right next to it, right? Now, if that bottle didn't have the O2 next to it, you might think, oh, well, that's my drinking level. And second, like thirst, in most survival games, don't you have a thirst monitor whenever you're playing? Isn't that always there? And something that usually, shows a much more clear idea of what thirst is. In a traditional survival game where you have to deal with these things, I can almost instantly find thirst, food, encumbrance, temperature. All that stuff is easily displayed and I understand what it is, and it's always there. In Star Citizen, the thirst meter didn't show up for the first hour and 18 minutes that I played the game, so why would I think it was a thirst meter unless it was, kind of omnipresent, as it is in most traditional games? And see, this is where I kind of made the mistake. I was like, what is this? But at the same time, this kind of plays into something that we talked about before, which is sometimes you don't know if this is the developer's intention or if this is a bug. Like, am I supposed to go for a certain amount of time and you just don't have to worry about thirst, but then all of a sudden thirst comes back and plays into the game? Maybe, that's, what CIG intends, is that, no, there's a grace period. And then once you start really losing hydration, which technically I guess you would always be doing, that's when we start to count it, and we start to count it down. There's a certain grace period when you first log on. Maybe that was their intention, or maybe this is a bug and it wasn't until a lot later that it finally triggered and said, oh no, now we're counting your water, but before we weren't. You noticed food, has not come up yet. And it wasn't until I think about 4 or 5 more hours in, while I was watching the comments and playing the game still, that I went like, oh shit, food is now popping up too. So maybe that's the developer's intention, or maybe it's a bug. But generally, if you want people to kind of monitor these things, wouldn't they be up all the time, as in traditional survival games, right? For me, here I am trying to unlock or to reset my crime stat. So I'm a little bit preoccupied with not getting shot. I'm all by myself in a PvP environment, so I'm a little bit preoccupied, and I can understand why I didn't see that symbol, or at least acknowledge it on some level, until I had been injured and I more or less had, escaped scot-free, and now my brain was in a kind of a different mode. But, true. It's water. It's thirst. That's what it is. But it wasn't apparent to me in the beginning. And that's kind of where you get onto that rant. And sometimes that's when you kind of get into a position where you kind of go, is this the intention of the developer? Or was this a bug that it only kicked in so late? Because had this kicked in, right away in the beginning and stayed up on the screen as it does when you first log in, then I would have gone like, oh, okay, now I know what this is. And now I know why I have to monitor it. But I don't know that because it disappeared and it didn't stick into the game for an hour and 18 minutes. And then all of a sudden it comes back, goes, oh yeah, by the way, you're running out of water now. Now, I certainly saw the comment that was like, LOL Minion, you should take this video down, almost as soon as I put it up, or not that, not that long afterwards. I do monitor the comments on a lot of my videos after they come out. And even though I had made a mistake, clearly, I'm still not going to take the video down, because, how can I be sitting here and criticizing something, and then when I do something that's worthy of criticism, I just take it down oh no, you can't see that. That's totally unfair. And that, that is something that, for game developers, that is something that it really is unfair, is that they can take criticism, but they can't give it, right? If a game developer goes out and criticizes what players are doing or something like that, then it's, oh man, they're attacking us, and, they're not understanding us. I think that, to kind of sit there and remove the ability to criticize myself while still criticizing others, that's kind of disingenuous. So just leave the video up. It's a mistake. It's there. Everyone can see it. Whatever, don't care. I don't really worry about too many things. I mean, I would honestly say that, yeah, I totally did make a mistake, and maybe if I paid more attention to the patch notes, or to the the sections of video content that generally don't draw that much attention from me, then I would have known what it was immediately. But at the same time, I could say, you could just put little H2O next to the droplets like you have an O2 next to the bottle, and it would be a little bit more obvious. So, that is what it is. At the end of the day, I can't sit here and criticize people and then take down, the ability for others to criticize me, right? It's just totally unfair. So, it remains. That's just... I think that was the comment that I put on it when someone was like, oh my god, take this down. It's just like, no, that's just the fun of figuring it out. That's just the way it is. But yeah, so that was kind of how I, how I made that misstep. At the end of the day, though, at the same time, it could not even be like a developer problem. It could just be a bug, It's supposed to be up all the time, but it wasn't. It required some kind of trigger event that for some reason it didn't recognize that it happened. So I played for an hour without the hunger or the thirst meters turning up, and so when they did turn up, they look a little different, and it's not immediately obvious. It's not like a game like Conan Exiles where you have a steak next to a water droplet and you go like, oh, okay, that's what that is, But live and learn. It is what it is. Sometimes that's the difficult thing of criticizing stuff in Star Citizen, is you don't know if this is actually what the developer intends, or if this is this is just a bug, an unintended consequence of like a break in another system, which is why shows like Calling All Devs and stuff like that are so important and should always be like a top priority. I'd much rather see you know, SC doing content like that than, you know, just kind of like flashy, more, you know, more managed content. I prefer the more direct contact with developer content like Calling All Devs provides, because it gives you a chance to ask questions and find out what, you know, not just what a system's going to look like, but what the intention is and what the hope for that system is. And, you know, that can help prevent you from making these types of misunderstandings or mistakes when you kind of go like, oh, okay, now I know what they're going for. And maybe sometimes players can see a better way getting there. I mean, it's certainly obvious that when you have that many brains working on a problem, someone's got to have a better answer. But anyways, that's the, I guess, bonus episode for the week. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. And yes, I know, I have to go get a drink now.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.